Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Also check me out on Twitch as Floyd Mason.
Hello, welcome back, Spooks fans. We're back, and it is time for another Goosebumps book review. This time we are on to book 20, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Pretty creepy shot of the Scarecrow out there in the field. Some nice coloring on this one. We'll get into my review of this one later. It's pretty good for the book. Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. You got a creepy Scarecrow in the middle of the night. Works pretty good. I do have the 2003 version of this one as well, but again, my room is a complete mess right now. I can't dig it out. It's on a shelf that's just got stuff in front of it, so can't really compare the two. But usually, on the 2003 one, it's only the coloring that's different for all of them. I don't think any of them actually changed the cover. I feel like there might be one. Like I'm trying to remember now if that's the series where Don't Go in the Basement was changed, because it wasn't originally Jacobus. So there might be a few, but they're mostly the same. They just have a slightly worse kind of design around it, but sometimes the colors are better. So, anyways, let's get on to this story. It's book 20, Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. This story is mostly about a pair of siblings named Jody and Mark, and basically every summer they go out to their grandparents' farm, and they spend the summer with them. So I think this is 2 books in a row. Yeah, because the last one was Deep Trouble. So there's 2 books in a row where the premise is you go to your relatives for the summer and crazy things happen. So maybe he was just in that mood. Maybe he wrote these during the summer or something. Who knows? But kind of similar starting premise for both books. You have the 2 kids, Jody and Mark. Jody's kind of the main character. And then you have the grandparents, who are Miriam and Kurt. And you have their hired help, Stanley, who has a son that they all call Sticks. I don't know if it ever clarifies that that's his real name, but that's what they all call him. It's similar to You Can't Scare Me With. They just called the guy Hat. I don't think he actually was ever given a real name other than Hat. So his name's Sticks. So the kids show up to meet them, and Stanley's there to pick them up and take them back to the farm. So they get there. It's kind of made clear right away that they're excited to be back. Mark's more of a city kid. Like it said they brung his Game Boy in like 50 games, which is an insane amount of games for a kid to own. I think between my brother and I, for the Game Boy, we own like 10, 15 maybe. Usually we just rent them if we needed them, or would, once we beat them, would sell them to get another one. But anyways, he's got a bunch of games, and Stanley comes to get them. So it also states early on, which is kind of a running premise of the book, but Stanley is a little slow. So he says a lot of like weird things to the book, so they can't really tell if he's like telling the truth or if he's trying to make a joke, and he says things just very bluntly sometimes as well. And so that kind of comes out that very early on he says that the Scarecrows walk at midnight, and he, Jody's kind of like, what do you mean by that? Like, again, she can't tell if he's trying to be funny or what he's trying to do, and he says he read it in a book. So she's kind of like, he read like some scary story, and he's just saying it like whatever kind of deal. When they get there to the grandparents' house, they notice that the grandparents seem older. So like their grandpa has a cane now. Like since last year, it just seems like they've aged a lot, and they seem a little off. Kind of like right away, Jody's kind of like, that seems a little weird. Like they seem just a little different. So Grandma says that Stanley will have to show them the scarecrows, and that he made them all, and Stanley kind of again is like, oh yeah, like the book, like I got them from the book, and the Grandpa Kurt seems to kind of want to change the subject and not talk about them. So it seems kind of early on that he doesn't like the scarecrows or the talk of them, and doesn't really clarify why, but he doesn't want to talk about them. So he said they made them from his book, and then he tells them that his son Styx has gone into town, so he's not there right now. So it's kind of first introduction of Styx, although you don't meet him right now. It's just kind of, yep, he has one. Grandma suggests that he takes him on a tour. Mark doesn't want to go, but Jody's like, hey, like, this is tradition, like, this is what we always do. And Mark's like, we've seen it 100 times. Which I would agree. If you've gone to your grandparents a couple times, it's like, hey, maybe show us something new. Like, if you did make the Scarecrows, we can go see them. But I wouldn't want to, like, here's the barn again. You know, that barn that you play in all summer, every summer. Because definitely, too, I mean, as a kid, it's that weird thing where, say you lived at your parents' house for the school year, and then you went somewhere for the summer, you probably spend more time in that summer place for the year because you're there all day, whereas you're at school, like, I mean, during the school year, you're basically in school, you go home, have dinner, play a little bit, and then to bed. So yeah, you're there, but you're sleeping. So kind of that weird thing of, like, thinking about it. It's like, if you went somewhere for a whole summer, you maybe remember that place better than your house for the year. Yeah. Also the fact that usually it's summer and you're doing more exciting stuff than being at school, but it is what it is. So as they're walking on the tour, Jody grabs a piece of corn and it's full of worms. And so she's kind of grossed out. Mark's a little, and Stanley freaks out a little bit. He says it's a really bad sign from his book. It's happened a couple times in the book. I don't think I wrote any more of them down. But there's a couple things that happen and he sees as a bad sign. I know there's one when they go fishing too. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it's really emphasizing that he's really into this book. It does say that he's quite superstitious as well. So he takes things like this very seriously. And it seems like anything he reads in this book, he believes. So he calms down, but then he again says the Scarecrows walk at midnight. And again, they're just like, okay, this is from the book. Like, he's just regurgitating stuff. Like, he's freaked out about the corn for whatever reason. So right then as well, after he says this, a Scarecrow kind of comes at Jody, and she screams, and it's just Sticks. And he's back from town, and he kind of just he was behind the Scarecrow and just kind of moved it and made it seem like it was coming at her. But it was just after Stanley said the Scarecrows walk, so she freaked out. And I mean, even if I wasn't, if the Scarecrow all of a sudden just moved and I didn't see the person behind it, I might freak out too. Especially as I think they're around like 10ish in this book, so perfect age to be scared by something like that very easily. So they talk to him for a bit. They kind of bring up his dad's book, and he doesn't want to talk about it at all. So he's kind of like, I don't want to talk about that book. Again, just kind of emphasizing that, like, Stanley seems to be obsessed with his book. It seems like it's all he wants to do and talk about. So they go back and they have dinner. Grandma makes the dinner. I think it's like chicken and corn, like a nice big dinner. And they're sitting around, and they ask their Grandpa Kurt to tell them a scary story. It's one of their favorite things. Two of the favorite things that they talk about is the pancakes that Grandma Miriam makes in the morning, and scary stories that Grandpa Kurt tell. They kind of, when they're like, oh, like, what are you excited for? Like, I'm excited for this, I'm excited for that at the start of the book. Those are the two big things. But Kurt says he doesn't really remember any. He's not in the mood, and they're just kind of like, this is so odd. Like, he loves telling them. It's one of his favorite things to do. Like, he often will go on and on, but he doesn't have any. So again, they're just kind of like, Grandpa especially is acting very odd today, trying to change the subject. Like, seems older, but again, it's like, maybe he's just a bit older. He's not feeling well. So they kind of write it off. So that night, when they're in their room, Jody looks out and she believes she sees Scarecrow moving around. So she kind of freaks out. She gets Mark in, who also kind of believes her. They want to go tell their grandparents, but like, we better wait till tomorrow. Like, we don't want to wake them up. Like, they'll be angry with us, so we'll just wait. We'll tell them tomorrow. So wake up expecting those pancakes, and it's only cornflakes. They're really disappointed by this. And their grandma's just like, hey, like, pancakes are too fattening. I don't even remember the recipe anymore. Stanley's pretty excited. He thinks cornflakes are better. Helps himself to a second bowl, and Grandpa just kind of looks disappointed and just walks away. So they're, again, like, just something seems weird. Something seems off. I will say, like, getting towards the end, like, or whatever, like halfway through the book, this book was pretty obvious to me. I mean, I'm sure even if you're listening to this right now and you have not read this book, you can probably guess what's going on. I think even as a kid I figured this one out. It is, I think, a little obvious, but there's good parts throughout it. But just so, like, just right now, challenge yourself to kind of guess the end of the book from here. I think you might get it. So they go out. Um, so they said that they saw him moving too, and Stanley says it must have been the wind. And Grandpa Kurt's kind of freaking out a bit at him, in kind of a, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure about that?" And Stanley's like, "Yes, must be the wind. It has to be the wind." So again, they're just like, "What's going on?" Like, Stanley's acting very weird. Their grandpa's acting extremely weird. But it kind of just goes down, and they convince them that, yeah, it must have been the wind. It had to have been the wind. Stanley said they're moving, and they kind of put the idea in your head, and you woke up, in the middle of the night, and just saw them moving a little, and thought it was that. So they decided that they're going to go fishing, so Stanley takes them out. He circles the barn 3 times, again, because it's part of his superstition stuff. They has to do that. Again, I think they see something on the way there as well. I can't remember what it was, but they get there, and they're all kind of like standing in the water, and Jody feels something grab her under the water, and she's convinced it's a scarecrow. She falls back, and it's just some weeds. Kind of a weak joke, like, why would the scarecrow be in this short creek grabbing you? But again, she's freaked out. She's kid, she's freaked out, so whatever. But to me, it was kind of like, it's kind of a lame gotcha grab chapter ender. So she falls, she gets kind of wet, and Stanley kind of makes a joke like, "Oh, I didn't know you wanted to go swimming. I would have brought a towel." And again, it's that you don't know if he's joking or trying to make a joke, or just like very blunt, kind of matter of factly. But because she fell, they say that she's scared of full of fish. So while she's kind of drying off, Mark and Stanley walk up a bit to go kind of fish, and they kind of walk around the corner, and they can't really see her. Then she sees a scarecrow, what she thinks is a scarecrow in the woods, and the guys come back, and she starts like saying, "Oh, I saw a scarecrow," and Stanley freaks out and just runs off. So he's just gone. Jody wants to chase after him to see what's going on, and so she tells Mark to stay behind because somebody has to bring all the fishing equipment back. He complains about it, of course, because he just whines about everything. He wants to be inside playing his Game Boy, but she chases after him. So she runs after him and thinks he went in the barn, so she goes in there, and when she's in there, it shuts. And so she's kind of in the dark and doesn't know what's going on, and something's moving. So she's kind of freaked out. There's something definitely, she can hear like shuffling around. So she climbs up to the top, and there's kind of what barns look like, the stereotypical TV barn. It's got the top opening, which they use to like move hay in and out of the barn. So there's a rope there, and her and Mark have apparently used it and swung down before, so she's kind of like, let's get down here, and there's a scarecrow kind of below. So she swings around and kind of avoids it, and right around the corner of the barn, she runs into Styx. So at this point, because she just got scared by them, and she saw the one below, and like even out by the water, she assumes that Styx is doing all this. He's kind of made fun of them before, that they're city kids and they can't handle the country, and so she thinks he's moving the scarecrows around to scare them. So she kind of freaks out a bit, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then she tells him that, like, "Oh, even Stanley was scared." And he's like, "Oh my god, my dad was scared." And so he runs off with kind of like out of another word. So again, just them all acting very oddly. So before dinner, Stanley asks Jody not to mention anything to Grandpa. It'll just upset him. And Jody's kind of like, I don't really know why. But again, I think at this point she still kind of thinks it Sticks, so she's like, fine, whatever. Like maybe he doesn't want Grandpa to get mad at Sticks or something like that, so she decides not to. And then another weird thing is they have cherry pie for dinner. And they're kind of like, I can't remember which one they usually have, strawberry, blueberry, or something. Like, oh, you usually make that one, it's delicious. And like, oh, well, we want to have cherry and stuff. And their grandpa's allergic to cherry, so he can't have any. But it happens to be Stanley's favorite. So he's super excited about the cherry pie. Cherry pie is my favorite, so I get it. Well, actually raspberry is probably my favorite, but cherry's very, very good. So another night, so the next part, I'd say the weakest part of the book is the next 2 chapters, and it's the stereotypical Stein dream. So she has a dream where her grandpa's a scarecrow and he's attacking her. It takes place over like 2 chapters. So there's like the chapter end where he's coming to get her, and then the very short chapter of just, oh my god, he's coming, like, he shows up, and that's the twist, and then he's coming at her, and then she wakes up. Again, it's the only part of the book that felt like padding. It's not that bad. I think each of these chapters is only like 2 pages, so it's 4 pages of just this dream. But it's just that thing, like, that Stein does this. So again, I think even as a kid, I was like, this is a dream, and then it was, and it's like, moving on. So again, it's kind of playing up the fact that she's scared, and I'm sure as a kid, it's a little more frightening because like it's actually something happening. Where all the rest is like you're kind of trying to figure out like what's going on and like why is everyone weird and like is Styx doing this. So it works in the sense of it, but I think it's a little bit of padding. So the next day the kids decide to go horseback riding, which is something they often do. Again, trying to just have their summer there and not think about this. I don't think Mark thinks about it at all, really. And Jody kind of is convinced that it Styx. So she's like, I won't let him get to me. So, so they get on. So they're going for the ride, and a Scarecrow jumps on the path, and they both fell off. And they kind of wake up, and Marcus hurt his arm or his wrist from the fall. Jody's okay, just a bit shaken up. So Stanley kind of sees them fall. He runs over, and the Scarecrow's just kind of lying there, like just lying on the path. So he's like Jody's horse ran off, but Stanley's like, hey, I better jump on Mark's horse with him and take him back, like make sure his wrist is okay. It's kind of like now Mark uses an excuse to like not go out, and he just like gets to hang out and watch TV for the rest. So he's happy, I guess, enough with the fall. And she thinks it was Styx. She thinks Styx threw it out. So he shows up nearby, and he's like, oh, you threw this out and scared us, and we fell, and we could have been really hurt. And he's like, I swear, like, it wasn't me. Like, as I said before, it's not me. I'm not doing this. She doesn't believe him. So at this point, she decides that what they have to do is they need to get Styx back. So their big plan, I think I mentioned earlier, but when she was in the barn, she saw a bunch of, like, all the stuff they was used to make the Scarecrow. There's a bunch of, like, torches and stuff in there. And, obviously the straw and the hay. So they decide that they're going to dress Mark up like a Scarecrow to scare Styx. So they're going to dress him up, put him out in the field. She's going to get Styx, and Mark's going to come down and scare him. So they go to the barn, because that's where all the materials are that Stanley used to make them. And they just, she stuffed him full of hay, and they work on it for a while to make sure he looks right. He doesn't have a hat, so they're gonna have to find him one off another Scarecrow in the field. But they're pretty happy with their plan. So they walk out there to find a spot for him, and get him on, kind of just on a pole type thing. And she goes out to find Styx. So as she's going to find Styx, she comes across a Scarecrow. And she's like, oh, it's Mark. It's just Mark. It's like, no, like, Mark's shorter than this. It can't be Mark. And she thinks it Styx, and she kind of looks at his face, and it's not anybody. And she realizes that it is a real Scarecrow. So they are actually alive as she thought. Styx then sees this, and he runs over and kind of knocks it over, and he explains everything to her. So that using that book that Stanley somehow got, it had a spell in it which brought these Scarecrows to life. This really upset all of them, especially the grandparents, so they begged Stanley to take care of it, and he used another spell to put them to sleep. And they're all pretty sure that they're asleep. However, Styx is aware that some of them didn't go back to sleep, and some of them are still awake. So most of them are asleep, but there are some that are still up, and they're causing some trouble. He's been kind of keep it under wraps because he doesn't want his dad to get in trouble, but he also knows that his dad will freak out because his dad is scared of them. And the grandparents have been being nice to Stanley because they don't want to upset him and to do it. So that's why they haven't been doing the pancakes, because he prefers cornflakes. They're not telling scary stories because he's scared of scary stories. They have the cherry pie. And again, to me, it was pretty obvious from the start that they were being weird because Stanley had this power. I think even as a kid, when I first read it, and the first time when he didn't tell scary stories, I was like, oh, and like it was like Stanley doesn't like scary stories. I'm like, oh, well, they're clearly scared of Stanley, and therefore Stanley made the Scarecrows come to life, and they are alive. It's still like a good twist, but again, it's how much can you really do? Like you assume that they're going to be alive, so it is what it is. But definitely kind of knew where this one was going. Still a good twist. So now they know that. Stanley then also sees the Scarecrow, and he starts freaking out, and Styx tries to calm down. He's like, hey, like, no, like, it wasn't walking, like, look, it's on the ground, like, nothing's going on. And Stanley starts to calm down, and then Mark comes wandering out of the cornfield. He's been waiting a while. He wants to know what's going on. Why isn't the plan going on? Don't blame him. She just kind of left him in a field dressed as Scarecrow when they kind of think Scarecrows might be walking around. So he walks out, and Stanley freaks out. And so his plan is now that he's going to wake them all up so he can control them. Again, it's played off as like not the brightest. I don't understand his reasoning at all, but again, it's been kind of built that he's not that smart, and this is just his mind in a scared like state doing something stupid. So he brings them all to life. They run off to the grandparents to kind of warn them. There is a great described scenes. Like I would say maybe the spookiest feeling one of Stein describing them climbing down from their poles, which is always like, I think scarecrows can be one of the most terrifying horror things, and any scene where they're kind of waking up and getting themselves down is always scary. And in the book, it's kind of scary. It's really well written. So they kind of are like, oh, like, what are we going to do? And Stanley doesn't know what to do. And so they get back and they're all alive and they just start kind of surrounding them. And then Mark sneezes and they kind of look at each other for a second and then they kind of sneeze. So Jody's kind of like, hey, like, raise your hand. And they all start to mimic it. And they realize that because Mark is dressed as a scarecrow, they think he's a scarecrow. And because he's kind of more independent than them, they kind of are mimicking him and kind of like, oh, what's, this, we should follow him type thing. So Jody comes up with the idea that he should then remove the head part that they made him, kind of like the hay part, and pull his own head off, hoping that they would do the same. So he does it, and there's kind of a moment of waiting, and they all start pulling off their own head. And this does nothing. So they keep moving towards him. Joey starts yelling, hey, like, do something else, like, make them hop on one foot so we can get away. And Graham and Miriam's kind of like, well, he doesn't look like a scarecrow anymore. They're not following him. I think they're not following him because they pulled off their heads and they can't see. But maybe they're holding their heads in their hand. I don't think it really describes it. But they no longer are doing that, and they kind of just start swarming them, and they're on top of them. And all of a sudden, Jody sees Styx run, and he had snuck off and got to the barn and brought back all the torches that they mentioned earlier in it, and he just starts lighting the scarecrows on fire. So he just starts burning them all, and he passed them out, and they all just kind of burned down all the scarecrows. Which, I mean, to me, if I was Grandpa Kurt, I would have done that a while back, because I would just be like, I don't trust Stanley at all. The second he said they were like, when they got there, and like Jody was like, oh, they're walking, I would have burned every scarecrow to the ground immediately, no question. But whatever, they burn them down, and that's kind of okay, they're safe. And then it does the typical little fun twist at the end, where Stanley's then reading the book in the living room, and there's talk early in the book about that he has some stuffed trophies, and there's a big stuffed bear, and I think they bring it up when he's like telling about the scary story, and he's kind of like, oh, the story like how I killed that bear, and they're like, oh, tell it. He's like, no, I'm too tired. But the bear turns and looks at Jody, and she's kind of like, Stanley, what chapter are you reading? Implying that he's mumbling something under his breath, and it might be a spell that brought it to life. And that's the end of the book. Again, I would not let Stanley keep that book at all. As soon as this happened, I would be going to his house and taking it, and nothing would stop me from taking and destroying that book. But it is what it is. So thoughts on the book. I think this is a pretty well-written story. It's definitely scary in the right parts. Again, I feel like the twists are a bit obvious, but a lot of them are, right? Like, it's the thing with a lot of books is either, like, it's hard to have a really clever twist kind of deal, right? Like, I don't know how many books you read where it's either the obvious thing or it's trying so hard to do the obvious thing that it does something that doesn't make any sense. So again, I like books. I don't mind supernatural in these books as long as it's grounded in reason. The reason, he has a magic book. wakes him up, totally fine with me. I can live with that logic. Again, I always compare it back to, but the Mummy's Tomb, the biggest problem is that there is nothing mystical going on, and then there just is as a convenient plot point. There's always the is it them, is it Styx, which I think is really well done. All the things are reasonable that Styx could be doing them. It makes more sense that he's doing them. And I know reading like a Goosebumps book, it's going to be supernatural at the end. But as a kid, you're like, oh, maybe it sticks this time. Which I always wish that like a writer sometimes would just write a story and like nothing supernatural happens. In the sense, in the sense of that book, it would be a terrible book. But in the sense of a series, it would be amazing. It's similar to my idea that they should make a horror game where there's an ending where you just leave, and like that's a canonical ending. And so every time at the start of the next game, it's just like, oh man, I left that last scary house, but no, I think we'll go in this one, and then you can leave again. And like 8 things down, he just has like he's never been in a house like. That's just like the start. I think it'd be hilarious if it just always started that way. It's like, well, I was gonna go in those houses, but I'm glad I didn't. I heard about some messed up things happen there later. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It alludes well, like it brings up the torches are in the barn, but it does it at a point where it's like, oh, like also the Scarecrow stuff is there, so you're not thinking like, oh, here's a clear foreshadowing, but it's well done there. I actually really like the fact that Stanley did not know they were back alive, and I think that's a good twist because it makes Stanley a more likable character. Stanley, they were being nice to him and doing stuff for him, but Stanley wasn't getting that stuff out of them because he was kind of threatening them. It's just they were scared that he might get upset and do something because he's just not that bright, and he thought that they all went back to sleep, and it was just his son kind of protecting him, which is a really nice moment as well. So I like that as well. So yeah, I am going to give this book an A. I think it's great. This is like a borderline S1. It's tough sometimes to distinguish what I think is an A and what is an S. Definitely, I mean, again, the only part I really don't like is the two chapter dream part, but it doesn't really take away from it. Again, it's almost like I sometimes feel with Stein that he gets to the twist too late. Right, where it's like it would almost be better if like you kind of knew they were alive earlier and there was more stuff going on because of it. But a lot of his books have a very quick ending, where it's the last 3 chapters are also like, oh, they're alive and this thing's happening and now it's fixed. After like build up, right? Like she got scared by Styx like in the barn, out by the water, while riding the horses. There's one other kind of at night when she saw them. Like, and again, none of them were Styx, but it was all like it just kept being like, oh, here's another time when she's scared and it might be Styx and it might not. So it takes away from it a little, but it's very, very good book. Again, the scene of them coming off the things is very well written and kind of scary, and I think it does a good job throughout where like you're pretty sure they're alive, but it might just be Styx. Like maybe it's the thing where, haha, Styx did it all, and it was him, and he turns around and is like, oh my god, they are alive, type thing, which would also have been good. So I'm giving it an A. As for this cover, this is an easy S. This is an amazing cover. The Scarecrow is terrifying. The face on it is terrifying. The moonlight is just perfect in it. The coloring of this is great. I love like the kind of reddish yellow kind of like off colors that just work so well with the Scarecrow in the night. Easy S. A very, very solid cover. So that's Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Honestly, it's been a little weak for a bit. We had One Day at Horrorland at 15, or 16, which got an S, but we've had a lot of B's and C's books lately. Like it feels like, there was a bunch of like, it was more hit and miss at the start where he's kind of trying to find his way. Like he'd go from A to C to S. But we had a couple B's on and off with an S in between and whatnot. But this just felt like a really, really good one, kind of step back in, and just kind of knocks it out of the park. So let me just look at, I don't have it open. I don't remember what the next book is. I guess it actually always has a start to the next one in the end of the book, so I can just see what it is. So next one is Go Eat Worms, which is good because I don't remember this one. I think at all. I mean, it might come back to me when reading it. I haven't started yet, but I don't remember this one. So it'll be fun to kind of again read one that I don't know what's going to happen. See if I remember it. See if I can guess it. But I look forward to that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you, everyone who came out. Again, this is a really great book. If you're looking for one to get started on and you don't really care about the order and whatnot, I think this is a great one to start. It's one of the more scary ones that I've read so far, I think.
Thanks for watching. Please click to check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and come by Twitch under Floyd Mason to join my live streams.